Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh, Director of Middle East Studies Forum at Deakin University, and I'm delighted to invite my good friend, Dr. Ibrahim Fraihat, who is joining us from Doha. When we discussed organizing this panel and the discussion, we were not we had no idea we would be holding this conversation in the middle of a war between Iran, United States, Israel, and now the war is dragging GCC states as well. So it's very timely for us to have this conversation. But before I give the floor to our esteemed guest, let me just introduce him very briefly. I don't want to eat into his time because time is precious and the topic is very important for us to discuss. Dr. Ibrahim Fraihat is Associate Professor in International Conflict Resolution at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. And of course, we are blessed to have him as well as our non-resident fellow at Deakin University's Middle East Studies Forum. Dr. Farhat has served as Senior Foreign Policy Fellow at Brookings Institute and has taught conflict resolution at Georgetown University and George Washington University. He's a prolific author, prolific researcher, and has published extensively on the Middle East. He has a number of books. I was just counting his books. I think, Ibrahim, you published a book per year or per 2 or 3 years. So every 2 or 3 years, there's a book coming out. I think last year or 2 years ago, you had two books coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
So these books include Conflict Mediation in the Arab World, Rebel Governance in the Middle East, Iran and Saudi Arabia taming a chaotic conflict, and also unfinished revolutions, Yemen, Libya, and Tunisia after the Arab Spring. Dr. Farhat has received a doctorate in conflict analysis and resolution from George Mason University, and he's a recipient of George Mason University's Distinguished Alumni Award for his achievements in the field of conflict resolution. So we have the right person to talk to us about what is going on and hopefully how can we get out of this mess. Ibrahim, floor is yours.
Thank you, Shahram. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be with you today. And I recall being a visiting scholar in the past at Deakin University, being with you guys, and now is continuing this scholarly relationship with Deakin University. It's a true pleasure for me and an honor. So thank you. I'm delighted to be with you here. And as Shahram said, when we first spoke about this talk, we did not have in mind that we will be talking in the midst of a war that's uncertain about the trajectory, about expectations, and about even actually the actual issues of this war or the objectives, which is so interesting that we're still here arguing or discussing about what the objectives are. So Trump left us very confused, and we thought we were the only ones who are confused about this war until I last night I heard the Democratic Party leader in the Congress, Chuck Schumer, talking that we had a briefing in behind closed doors briefing, and we left without knowing what the objectives of this war are. So I thought, okay, so I'm not the only one that was confused about this war. So if you have any questions, we can definitely talk about it. I'm spending my evening time on a daily basis these days on Al Jazeera. Actually, is along with a few other regional analysts that we're trying to make sense of what Trump has started the past few days. So we can talk about this after the talk about the regional order that was the initial subject of this war, which is, again, it's part of this, of what's happening today. So I will try to focus on the major points of talking about the regional order here, or the forming regional order, the new regional order that's taking place, which is a critical point that analysts or scholars who are trying to understand the Middle East region is to try to understand the regional order that's impacting politics in the region on many levels. So, before I start talking about this new regional order that's taking shape at the moment, it's not in its final status. It's in still an ongoing political regional project at the moment. And I'm sure in a few years it will develop in different ways that probably we're not aware of now. But we're trying our best is now to detect how the shape and the interactions of this regional order that's taking place. Before I start, it's important to just give an idea about the current or the past or the previous regional order, like where we're moving from, right? So, in my view, since 2003 in particular, we started to see a regional order taking shape after why 2003, after the US invasion of Iraq. And before the US invasion of Iraq, we had what I call a balanced regional order, where there was an Arab bloc, and there is the Iranian allies on the other hand, and there is more of a balance. So the balanced region order was maintaining itself and keeping some sort of stability in the region. I wouldn't say peace, but stability in the region because of the balanced power among the key players in the region. Now, with the US invasion of Iraq, basically it moved Iraq from the Arab bloc to the Iranian bloc, so which left the regional order totally unbalanced, which at the time, of course, this encouraged Iran or positioned Iran in a stronger way that actually invited more Iranian expansion and intervention in the region. So we started to see more of forming armed militias in different places, empowering existing ones in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and so forth. So this is like what maintained or what controlled or what shaped the regional order, where you have an Iranian bloc, what's called the axis of resistance, of involving players like Iran, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, the Houthi, the Ansarullah movement, the Houthis, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in Palestine. And on the other hand, there is what's called the moderate Arab states, basically the US allied states like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, Jordan, right? So the regional order was kind of clear, where you have access of resistance on one hand, and the moderate or the US allied Arab states on the other hand. So it was easy to read and to detect the interactions happening in the region among or between these two major blocks, right, in the regional, and each one is trying to build, to expand and gain more influence and power over the other party during this rivalry between the two alliances. So recently, this has started to change, actually, and the changes as a result of this, it's coming mainly, or one source of this change, actually, it's being impacted by the transformation of the international order. Basically, the argument is that the international order is moving from a unipolar international order more into a multipolar regional order. So there has been recently an absence of a leading international power, more of a unipolar regional order, which is, again, many scholars in international affairs arguing that it's moved to more of a multipolar regional order. So this has impacted the Middle East regional order that I'm trying to understand here and to try to make sense of how the political interactions happening in the regional order here in the region. So the first, I'm going to talk about five major characteristics shaping the Middle East regional order that I described being a fragmented, multipolar, and transaction heavy regional order in the region. So this has five major characteristics, and the first characteristic is hedging, which is being impacting as a result of the transformation that's happening in the regional order, in the international order. So hedging became or has become actually a major pillar of this Middle East regional order that basically tries to understand the relationship between the countries here and the patron states in the international order. So in the past, again, there used to be one leading power, the United States, and the US has allies and major allies. But this, over the past years, and started to be more clear, more of different players or different leading players in the international order: US, China, Europe, Russia, Turkey, playing role in the region. So this has led many players here in the region to move more into the hedging policy, trying to avoid choosing one patron, right? So there are many players, and each country or most of the countries try to start to not choose one patron states from the leading international powers, but try to be on good terms with many of them at the same time, because you don't know where this international order is moving, in what directions. So you want to ensure that you are building strong ties with each one of them. So hedging and trying to multiply your patron states in the international order has become a major characteristics that's shaping the foreign policy behavior of many countries in the region. So in the past, particularly prior 2015, for example, the Gulf states over here were mainly allying with one security umbrella, which is the United States, one security vendor to the region over here. Starting 2015, and in particular, since the signing of the US nuclear agreement with Iran, those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE in particular, started to diversify their relationship, right, with the major or with the key international players, because the trust with the United States eroded, and it was shaken by the signing of the agreement with Iran and excluding their Gulf allies from their concerns about the relationship with Iran, and they felt they were thrown under the bus and abandoned by the United States. So this security vendor or sole security vendor, the United States, to the Gulf region started to change with opening relationships with others, because and also with Russia playing a key role in Syria, with US hesitation or retreat from the region. So this all pushed the region, the players in the region more again into a hedging foreign policy behavior, which is still the case, right? And we've seen this also in particular taking place during the Ukraine war, Russia-Ukraine war, and the U.S. request of Saudi Arabia from Saudi Arabia to increase its oil supplies to compensate for the Russian absence from this market, while Saudi Arabia is not aligning mainly with the U.S. Objectives here, and not going into this position with the United States. So again, we started to see this more of trying to be on good terms and more of a hedging foreign policy behavior with different countries. So the hedging is not only in the security area, but countries started to diversify technology, energy, diplomacy ties with the different players, while trying to see where the international order is moving, because this is, as you know, is still a very debatable issue among scholars of international relations, whether we still have a unipolar world order or a multipolar international order. So the second major characteristics, I would say, it's what we used to see as part of the regional order as the rivalry between the axis of resistance versus the U.S. allied moderate Arab states. Is also, this equation is no longer clear, especially in the past 2 years, and with the weakening or the substantial weakening of the axis of resistance bloc, meaning this bloc lost Syria basically. And in my book, Iran and Saudi Arabia, Taming a Chaotic Conflict, I explained this about the regional order, how it was shaped in 2003 and became imbalanced in favor of the Iranian axis or the axis of resistance. And my argument is that in order to restore balance to the regional order, and because restoring balance would result in stability, and the wars, it's because of this imbalance of the regional order. I argued that you would have to either bring back Iraq to the other side, or take Syria out of this of the other bloc, the axis of resistance, in order to balance it again. So actually, what happened is that Syria has moved like from this bloc, the axis of resistance, to the other side. So which again, right, brought balance that was missed since 2003, and the axis of resistance that versus the moderate Arab states is no longer the equation that's shaping politics, conflict, stability, and foreign policy in the region. This has changed, especially in the past 2 weeks, with the moving of the Syria position from one party to the other. The other thing that happened to this also axis of resistance is the major or the substantial weakness of the non-state actors. Also, that they played over the past 20 years a key role in shaping foreign policy and politics of the region, mainly Hezbollah and Hamas, also that has been substantially weakened in the past 2 years, which again all resulted in major transformation of the axis of resistance. The way we know it today is no longer the way it was a few years ago. So this again, rivalry of axis of resistance versus U.S. allied Arab states is no longer the equation that's controlling or shaping politics in the region. It is changing, right? And Iran, the retreat or the weakening of Iran role in the region actually left in a security vacuum in the region. So there is a security vacuum in the region resulting from this change of Iran's role over here, which raises the question of who's going to fill this vacuum, this security vacuum that's resulting from the again retreat of the Iranian transformation or the change in this relationship. So do we still have two blocks in the two allied blocks in the region? It's no longer the case. So things are changing. I call it there is a liquidity in the political map in the region, which is you don't know who's part of who, and there is a huge transformation of different parties. That's what I meant by probably in 2 years we will be talking about more clear regional order that's taking place over here. So what's happening today, which leads me to the third major characteristics of this regional order, which is compartmentalization in foreign policy of many parties, of many different parties here in the region, where we're not seeing full alliances, solid alliances, that the way we knew them in the past 20 years, two major blocks fighting, each one is trying to defeat the other one. We're seeing more of collaboration being built among different countries that are content driven or issues driven collaboration, which what I call more of a compartmentalization policies for the moment that's happening now. So meaning that Turkey and Egypt has improved relationship significantly, and it's the same between Turkey and Saudi Arabia and UAE and Saudi Arabia. But can we talk about an alliance, like a strong, solid, formed alliance between Turkey and Saudi Arabia or Turkey and Egypt? We can't do that. We can't say that. We see more of collaboration on different topics, economics, energy, maybe Saudi Turkey collaboration on politics in Syria, and same thing Turkey UAE in Syria, but different positions on Libya between UAE and Turkey. So there are no alliances that in the again classical sense of what we used to know, whether in the previous region or during the Cold Wars, because also during the US-Soviet Union Cold War, we had also two major blocks here. One is Soviet Union allies and US allies at the same time. So this clarity in the classical definition of regional rivalry, it's absent. It's not the same that we use. So it's more of, again, that's what I said, it's more of fragmented, multipolar, transaction heavy order. So focusing on the issues, on the content, rather than developing full alliances between Syria and Iran, for example, in the past 20 years. Right, that allying in terms of economics, politics, energy, and non-state actors, and all of that. This is no longer the case that's happening here. However, there is the argument, according to Bibi Netanyahu, that that Netanyahu is trying to put it in different words, more of a religion-focused alliances, that the collapsing Shia alliance, what he calls, referring to the axis of resistance, and the forming Sunni axis, meaning Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, and Jordan, basically. Again, in my view, this has not been the case. And actually we don't have an alliance called the Sunni Alliance. That's again that consists of Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, and Jordan. There is no such thing. There is, in my opinion, at least so far. So there is collaboration in different, more of again a compartmentalization on a compartmentalization basis on the issues rather than full alliances that are moving into one direction. However, this takes me to the fourth major characteristics of the regional order, which is again, I strongly disagree with this characterization of a religious or a sectarian, a new form of sectarianism that's being advocated by Netanyahu and probably other scholars who might be attracted by this more of sectarian analysis, that it's a Sunni bloc that is being formed over here, what Netanyahu calls. That takes me to the next characteristic, which is more of an alliance based on security uh, to balance the Israeli expansionism in the region. So there has been in the past 2 years more of a clear expansionist policy or tendency among Israel that's trying to expand in terms of influence, land, resources, and to be the hegemon of the region. And this is the way we understand this, this is actually in the words of Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, referring constantly in the past 2 years about redrawing the political map of the region, is mainly of reshaping the political map of the borders of the political borders in the region. So the most pressing factor here of other countries trying to come together in terms of foreign policy to counter this expansionist behavior of Israel in the region is also the referral to more of the greater Israel. And this is in the words of Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister. An active Israeli prime minister explicitly, openly, in an interview with Israeli media channel I-24, Netanyahu referring to the greater Israel. Greater Israel that would include lands from Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, basically between the Nile River and the Euphrates River, Nile River in Egypt and the Euphrates River in Iraq. This is being clearly, again, stated by an active prime minister, Israeli prime minister, that's responding to the I-24 media interview that I'm committed to this vision, biblical vision that he refers to in the Bible about building this greater Israel in his mind. So this is basically a declaration, in my opinion, a declaration of war or expansionism towards the neighboring countries, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq and Jordan, of course. And to make things worse, I'm sure some of you watched the interview Tucker Carlson with the U.S. ambassador in Israel, Mike Huckabee, where Mike Huckabee, again, the U.S. ambassador in Israel, talking about building the greater Israel between the Nile River and the Euphrates River in Iraq, that involves this. So there is a very concerning, extremely concerning feeling among many states that of this very obvious evidence-driven in terms of statements of officials, prime minister and a U.S. ambassador in Israel, towards more of a Israeli expansion in the region. So this has become, in other words, more of a security threat, a serious security threat to key players in the region that are involved in this Israeli expansionist vision, mainly Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Iraq, of course, in addition to Jordan and Lebanon and Syria. So this is again why we're seeing some countries are trying to fill the security vacuum that resulted from the retreat of the Iranian role in the region and its non-state actors, allies in the region. So that's where something that we should watch and trying to build. But this is again more of still so far on the political level, which I don't see as part of a really major alliance being formed among the what now Netanyahu calls the Sunni states or the Sunni alliance in terms of countering Israeli expansionist behavior in the region. Now, the fifth and last major characteristics, there are several others, but these are the major ones, where I call that Palestine is back and at the center of legitimacy in the political behavior in the region. So prior October 7, we were talking about even the details of a Saudi-Israeli normalization that the U.S. administration, the Biden administration was pushing for and was trying to make this deal. And we had the attitude of normalization, the Abraham agreements, the Saudi-Israeli normalization, and all of that, that was the political mood in the region. Now, this is no longer the case, where Saudi Arabia's normalization being actually moved into a whole different direction on the basis of, again, center, being Palestine at the center of legitimacy over here, that as a result, of course, of the genocide in Gaza, countries are distancing themselves on the basis of Palestine from normalizing with Israel, because who's going to normalize with a state or a government that's committing a genocide in Palestine, in Gaza, on that level? So our politics started to be also seen in the prism of this more analysis on that level. Now, let me talk also very briefly about, after talking about the major characteristics, like about the rules of how the new order behaves, how these countries behave, or the behavior of the regional order in the region. And I believe I have a few more minutes, Shahram. Okay, very quickly on that level, and we can take questions. I think in terms of behavior of the regional order, we see more deterrence, less reliance on diplomacy alone. So security or relationships, being shaped by deterrence, not fully on diplomacy only to solve the problems emerging. Also, we will be seeing crisis bargaining is constant. What I call is that because of not very clear rules and alliances, so this is going to lead to many crises happening in the region, where crisis bargaining and mediation and changes that are happening in the region, you need to be facilitating constant issues here and there. And the third also behavior is talking about great powers act more like toolkits than patrons Also because we don't have the Cold War type of rivalry or alliances. So basically, we don't have a fully fledged patterns, more of a toolkit. Countries going to Saudi Arabia, to U.S. for this, and and energy with China, probably some military relations or arms purchase from Russia and all of that. So it's more of a toolkit rather than fully fledged. Just one last thing, issues to continue to be present is to watch for and the regional order that's going to impact it. The Arab Spring, my friend, is not over, right? So there will be calls for change and possible revolutions in the region in the coming years. The Arab Spring is not totally over, but it's back and forth going, and this is part of the time that we might see it happening because the causes of the Arab Spring are still there, the root causes. Nothing changed in terms of repression and dictatorships and underdevelopment and all of that. So the root causes are still there. So we should expect to see the Arab Spring emerging back and forth here and there in different countries. There were protests happening in Morocco a few months ago. You probably followed this at some point. Youth movement and emerging in Morocco. So I think these waves we will be seeing. Also, terrorism is not over. ISIS is not totally gone. We might see different forms of terrorism also. And the reason, actually, in my view, is that referring to the deep root causes that are still there. Because with these root causes, some youth take the track or the path of change through movements and through protests and all of that, but others get fundamentally radicalized and move into the more extreme radical track. So I think again, terrorism is continuing, might be taking different forms, however, on that level. And lastly, displacement refugees, unfortunately, is also continuing. The refugee crisis in Syria is not over, is not in Sudan, is not over. In Libya, in Palestine, in Gaza, this also joined in the past 2 years. So refugee studies, displacement, I think this is also another thing that it's continuing in terms of issues in the regional order that we're going to see shaping in the near future, which I think, again, in my view, will be more clear in what direction it has moved in a couple of years, especially when this war currently is over and how countries are trying to put things together to fill the security vacuum that resulted from the changes that has happened with the axis of resistance. Thank you.
Dr. Ibrahim, thank you so much for this grand view and analysis of really fast changing dynamics in the Middle East. You managed to squeeze so much information in 40 minutes. So kudos to you. I apologize for cutting you short and hurrying you, but we do have some questions. I believe Professor Michelle Pace already was messaging me that she has a question. So if you have a question, please use the raise hand function on Zoom and I'll call upon you. Please keep your question brief. And I also ask Dr. Ibrahim to keep your responses brief. That way we can get through a few questions. So
Okay.
I'm looking for raised hands. I don't see any. Oh, Benedict is clapping, saying well done. Okay, well, while others are thinking, Benedict, are you asking a question or applauding?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wonderful. Just a specific.
Oh, put your mic back on. We can't hear you. No.
Beg your pardon. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah,
fine.
I beg your pardon. Thank you very much. Just a specific question. Do you have any particular view on the Turkey-Egypt defense pact that's recently happened in terms of this changing regional dynamics?
should I answer to?
Yes, please go ahead briefly.
Um, the relationships actually between Egypt and Turkey has improved substantially in the past year. Actually, we had very strong antagonism on both sides, actually, where Turkey was being seen as supporting or backing the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the Egyptian regime actually takes very seriously, and seen as Turkey being supporting the opposition. This has changed with improving relationships. We saw Erdogan visiting Egypt on that level. So there has been an agreement built between in collaboration in economics and in terms of security as well. But I don't see it as, again, emerging as a full alliance between the two players. So it's basically the center of this collaboration is more of in the Eastern Mediterranean, the gas supplies, the gas resources on the eastern border that actually shaping or the political alliances in the Eastern Mediterranean, where more of we're seeing Egypt, or the way it was before, Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, Greece on one hand, and excluding Turkey, more Turkey, Libya on the other side. So this has been at the center of this rivalry in the Eastern Mediterranean. So this latest improvement is more trying to address the gas issue in the Eastern Mediterranean, where to bring the two visions, the Turkey and Egypt, closer, rather than, because it was in the past more of a strong rivalry between the two parties on that level. So Turkey is trying to move closer on that level and build more of a stronger or a closer Egypt-Turkey vision on the gas of the Eastern Mediterranean.
Thank you. Professor Michelle Pace, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't get my video to work, but
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Ibrahim, for this very wide-ranging analysis. But I have, perhaps, if I may, two questions.
Yeah.
You spoke about this possibility of a new regional order in the Middle East, and as you said, given the ongoing debates around territorial expansion and the idea you also mentioned about Greater Israel, I'm wondering, do you think emerging regional arrangements risk in any way normalizing what we can refer to as asymmetric sovereignty or territorial ambiguity? And how might that affect long-term regional stability? So we can maybe put the question up slightly differently. Is the current international order enabling or constraining revisionist territorial projects in the Middle East? And I mean, you mentioned particularly regarding Israel and Palestinian territories. And I'm concerned as to what this might imply for the credibility of international law in shaping this new regional order. Thank you.
Excellent question, Michelle. Thank you. Actually, unfortunately, the international order to hopefully give a clear answer. Actually, the changes happening in the international is enabling this territorial expansionism on that level. Especially, there is no, unfortunately, role for international law that's happening today in the regional politics of the region of the Middle East. Actually, it has become a lawlessness type of politics of the Middle East. The current war is absolutely is against international law. There hasn't been any, even like in 2003, before the U.S. invasion of Iraq, the U.S. made the effort to try to provide international legitimacy in terms of invasion of Iraq. Here, there hasn't even been a call for a Security Council meeting, not before or after even the war, where the Security Council and international law can play a role. My friend Michelle, it's a very, very dangerous time that we're living in, with the lawlessness and the retreat of the absence, I would say, of international order. There is nothing legal in terms of international law that's happening in Gaza at the moment, whether it's in terms of genocide, whether in terms of the board of peace that the Trump administration is proposing or is working on. It's a very scary world, Michelle. The board of peace, as you see it, it's an alliance of far right movements who are invited to this board of peace. Right-wing governments in Hungary, Uruguay, Argentina. Those are the Trump versions of these countries. Like in the more very extremes, Bibi Netanyahu is in the board of peace, right? And the ambitions of this board of peace are very clear, by the way, that to replace international law and to replace the Security Council of the United Nations. Even the slogan, right, or the logo, the logo of this Board of Peace actually is similar to the United Nations logo, in order as a clear statement of replacing it. So it's a very scary world. And I have to tell you that it's not only in the Middle East, the implications here, it's also for the world. Though at the moment, we're seeing this being actually manifested and presented in the Middle East, as you see, in terms of territorial expansionism, and in Gaza and in several other places by Israel and the neighboring countries as well. The issue of this, the Israeli or the Israeli government's dream of displacing the Palestinian from Gaza and the West Bank, it's an active project. So it's taking place on a daily basis in the West Bank, not just in Gaza, of what you hear that, it's a result of October 7 and Hamas and all of that. There is no Hamas in the West Bank, right? But this project of territorial control of what's called the sea area, the least populated area in the West Bank, it's happening, and it's on a daily basis. Every hour of Israel expansion, taking more land in the West Bank from what's called the sea area, the least populated territory area. So it's real, it's happening. And again, linked to the changes of the international order of two leaders, Netanyahu and Trump, go into war, a regional war of what we're seeing at the moment, that it's happening, again, without even consulting their own governments. It's the war in U.S. laws. It's not just the international law, Michelle. It's in the U.S. This is not constitutional war. It's illegal in terms of U.S. The U.S. Constitution. The president in the U.S. cannot go for a war without approval from the Congress. It's very clear in the Congress on what the president can do. It can do military strikes here and there, like what Clinton did in the late 90s in Afghanistan and in Sudan. Military strikes here and there, and that's it. But a fully fledged war where now 50,000 U.S. troops are involved, right? And it's a continuing war, right? So this is very unconstitutional in terms of U.S. laws. But even with that, the more scary thing, Michelle, is that last night we had a bill in the Congress, in the Senate, actually, presented by the Democratic Party, trying to stop the war or to try to constrain the president in terms of that. and this bill did not pass. The voting was 53 against 47. So 53 Senates, right, providing or approving an illegal war by U.S. law, right, that it's against the Constitution. So it's a scary world where we're seeing a total absence. Can you imagine with a regional war happening that involves now not only Iran and Israel and the United States, but also the Gulf states and Jordan and Turkey? Last night, Iran fired missiles on Turkey. So also Turkey became involved. The NATO is also signaling that we're ready to defend any NATO member like Turkey on that level. And with all this happening, there is no one Security Council meeting to discuss this. So you're right to raise, to be alerted and to be alarmed about what's really happening with international law. So in my opinion, again, unfortunately, sadly speaking, which is so scary, not only for the region, but for the international law, it's a lawlessness in terms of international law that's happening. It's alliances of right-wing, far-right wing governments. Those are the ones that are playing politics on that level, again, with the U.S. and their own allies, Israel and Hungary and Argentina and the Uruguay and all these far-right wing governments. And all happening at the expense of international law, unfortunately.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. I don't see any other hands up. I'm not sure if people are aware of the function. Oh, Michelle Burgess, go ahead.
Oh, hi, sorry, hi. Thanks so much for this amazing talk. Thank you very much. So we've talked about the sort of classic hegemon in the region, the US, but obviously before these last few days, there was a lot of infrastructural and trade deals going on between the Gulf and India and China, particularly with the creation of seeing the Gulf with Israel often as this absolute key hub linking Europe and let's call it the Far East. And China has been quite reticent in sort of getting involved in this conflict. We haven't heard that much from India either. What's your sense then, given that people are already saying the US is already sort of displaying its weakness here, actually, in through these strikes and its inability to protect its allies, its Gulf allies? What's your sense then of how this might end up actually sort of pushing further these alliances between the Gulf and let's call it the Far East? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it's a very important question about the absence or the compartmentalization of what the countries are trying to do and the different alliances that they're trying to build, the diversification. We've seen, because of this absence role of a leading international power, the way it was before, we've seen Saudi Arabia actually signing a mutual defense agreement with Pakistan, right, on the security level. This would have been like crazy thinking to talk about a few years back, right, of someone is providing security to the region other than the United States. The UAE actually is also signing a defense agreement with India. So India and Pakistan are becoming key security partners in the Gulf region on that level. And the more interesting thing that the US is not saying anything or is unable to stop it on that level, which again was a total taboo just a few years ago, is to talk about this security. So there is hedging and compartmentalization, the key factor of foreign policy behavior of the Gulf states that are taking place. And they're trying to build all these alliances without really trying to ally or to be constrained to only one partner or one patron state on that level. And there is also part of this argument about the Sunni alliance Saudi Arabia, Pakistan is also taken, Turkey and Egypt, where also Pakistan as being part of this, Pakistan being a nuclear state, where can provide the balance for the Israeli expansionism in the region. Because I can tell you the Israeli expansionism is driving a lot of politics in the region, including in the Gulf, right? On that level of where Israel is trying to be the total hegemon of the region, including the Gulf region. So, and there is no, again, can you imagine that Russia and China are not saying even one word about what's happening in the region? This is their ally. Iran is, more of their ally in the past years, without even calling for the Security Council to meet and talk. So we should continue to see more hedging and compartmentalization, issue-based alliances and collaboration among states, and that could take place in different areas in energy, politics, security, and all of that.
Well, I see that Mehmet, my colleague, has put his hand up, but we are out of time, unfortunately. This was a tour de force. Ibrahim, thank you so much for taking us through the region, showing to us the major fault lines that are emerging, the new characteristics of the new regional order. And all of this is really scary. It's made me really, really unsettled, really. You're not helping me go to sleep tonight. But
I
thank you
haven't
so
been
much.
able to sleep for many days.
So I
Because
do
of this.
appreciate your input, and I do acknowledge everyone's questions and participation. So thanks to everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Shahram. It's been a
But
pleasure being with you this morning, my morning. So thank you very much.
yes,
And I wish you a very beautiful day.
indeed,
Uh, and good luck trying to understand the politics of the region. And if you do, please tell me,
I
because I
will.
think I reached the point where I don't know where we're going with this. We're now focusing on how to stop this crazy war that's expanding every day.
It
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
crazy. It is crazy. But before everyone leaves, I'd just like to let everyone know that we do have an in-person seminar in Melbourne. So if you happen to be in Melbourne, we'd love to have you. Our colleague, Professor Michelle Burgess Castala, is going to talk to us about the Gaza and reimagining of the rules. So looking forward to that. I have shared the Eventbrite link in the chat, and I'm sure you are all on our mailing list, so you will be receiving a mail out of this upcoming event. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you so much, Dr. Ibrahim, for making the time. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.